He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Today is would be the 106th birthday of Milton Friedman, born in 1912. Probably one of the greatest thinkers, and certainly had great influence on a number of Republicans and conservatives in this country. Quite the libertarian, quite the free trader, the capitalist. Wrote extensively, taught extensively, and one of his great, character traits was how plainly and easily he could describe liberty. I mean, capitalism is about liberty, after all. Socialism is about tyranny. One of my favorite quotes of Milton Friedman's is as follows. Fair is in the eye of the beholder. Free is the verdict of the market. The word free is used 3 times in the Declaration of Independence and once in the First Amendment to the Constitution, along with freedom. The word fair is not used in either of our founding documents. Fair. Free trade, fair trade. And he also has pointed out, at the bottom of many criticisms of the market economy is really a lack of belief in freedom itself. And he's right. And he's right. There's a battle of sorts going on now between the Koch brothers and Donald Trump. The Koch brothers collectively are worth somewhere around $70 to $80 billion. Donald Trump is worth something between $5 and $9 billion. The Kochs employ over 120,000 people, more than half of whom work in the United States. Extremely productive individuals that help feed tens of thousands of families. And their impact on our economy is enormous. Enormous. The Kochs are libertarians. David Koch ran for vice president as a libertarian. I believe it was 1980. Donald Trump is a relatively new Republican. The Kochs support free trade. Donald Trump is a protectionist, whether it's for negotiation purposes or otherwise. That's been pretty much his position over the years. The Kochs support open borders and broad amnesty when it comes to immigration. Donald Trump supports securing our border and bringing order to immigration. The Kochs are very much isolationists when it comes to foreign policy, and they are very much opposed to increased spending on defense. Trump, although early on sounded like an isolationist, he's no isolationist. And he has tried to significantly increase spending on defense. The Kochs are concerned about the massive debt and the size of government. Donald Trump is concerned about the massive debt and the size of government, and nobody does a damn thing about it. And so the Kochs announced, through Charles Koch, their 82-year-old patriarch, that, they may back some Democrats or not back some Republicans if they agree more than not with a certain Democrat or disagree more than not with a certain Republican. Donald Trump has entered a number of primaries supporting candidates who support his agenda. So now they're at loggerheads. Now they're both at the point of the spear. This was, in my view, just a matter of time in the making here. This issue of immigration, trade, defense, these are key issues. And I would argue that Trump is right 2 out of 3, and the Kochs are wrong 2 out of 3. Way back when, we had libertarians and conservatives, but what's interesting to me is that neither the Kochs nor Donald Trump are traditional conservatives. The Kochs are not Reagan conservatives. They're more libertarian. Donald Trump is not a Reagan conservative, although he's the closest to a Reagan conservative we've had. The Bushes weren't. And so on the issue of trade, I believe Donald Trump is wrong. On the issue of immigration, I believe the Kochs are wrong. The issue of defense, I believe the Kochs are wrong. I'll tell you one area they agree. So-called criminal justice reform. And I disagree with both. Because it's not reform. It's a prison break. Letting people out of prison who have been convicted or pled is not reform. To say that there is a systemic problem in our justice system, while there are problems, is just dead wrong. Unless you think the judges are in on it, and the prosecutors are in on it, and the defense counsel's in on it, and everybody's in on it, and they're not. You have certain instances of injustices and so forth, and the fact is we have imperfect institutions, but we have great institutions, more perfect than most. And as I watch and listen and analyze this Trump versus Koch kind of battle, I was watching our favorite cable channel last night. I don't always watch it. I read a lot. I'm writing. And there was one host who resorted to Bernie Sanders' platitudes that the Kochs are globalists. I thought to myself, the ignorance about this word globalist or globalism is absolutely amazing to me. When it comes to American sovereignty, when it comes to our Constitution, when it comes to the institutions that our Constitution set up, you do not export representative government to the UN or other international institutions in order to lord over us. In other words, globalism has nothing to do with the denunciation of capitalism. Capitalism is a global economic system. Capitalism is a global economic system. Without it, we would be a destitute country. Globalism, in the sense of national sovereignty and governance, is antithetical to our constitutional system. In other words, we don't rely on the UN for our governance or other international organizations when it comes to so-called climate change and so forth. That's why we ought not enter into such arrangements. We must rule ourselves in order to be free. We must rule ourselves in order to be free, our own sovereignty, our own constitution, our own governmental institutions. Otherwise, we have no real representation, and we have no way of conveying our views to our representatives, since they're not our representatives in these global or international institutions. But when it comes to economics, of course we support international trade. Of course we want to purchase things from overseas, including material. It would be crazy not to. And I was listening to this person go on and on and on. Sounded like Bernie Sanders. So part of the problem here is the confusion over terms, people lining up on political positions rather than economic positions, people who are easily jettisoning their previously held views. And in general, they sound like ignoramuses to me. Absolute ignoramuses to me. In any event, we'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We have a problem there? Okay, we'll get it unfrozen if you can. Okay, great. That's our equipment. So I'm sorry about that, folks. My wife was general counsel of Freedom Partners for I think it was 2 years. She's a hell of a lawyer. And was treated wonderfully. Folks that work for Freedom Partners. And they do many, many wonderful things. But still, I'm a big fan of Donald Trump. Doing many, many wonderful things. But in this life, you only have one, And you got to stick by your belief systems and your values and your principles, as she did, as I do. We both do. I think it's getting harder and harder to persuade even some of you folks of the benefits of liberty. Friedman's point about this word fair. It's a word that children use all the time. It's a word that the left use all the time in order to attack liberty. Liberty. And so everybody has excuses. That other guy, he pays lower wages. The other guy won't give me access to this. The other guy that, the other guy this. That's been going on since the beginning of mankind. The goal is not to parrot the other guy. The goal is for us to live in liberty, to have opportunity, to have choice, to create wealth. If they choose not to, or they choose not to participate in it with us, that's their problem. That's their problem. So, then the Wall Street Journal editorial page today is absolutely trashing the hell out of the president. Donald Trump, who they never supported. Trashes the hell out of Donald Trump. Because Trump is saying that, look, if I have to shut down the government, I will. I have said that I want that southern border secured. Now, presidents have said that they would secure the southern border for the last 40 years. Democrats first blocked them, and now Democrats and Republicans block them. We have people who run for the Senate, people who run for the House, who say they're going to do something about it, and they get to Washington. They are absolute bald-faced liars. Now, the Wall Street Journal claims to care about the size of government, claims to care about the debt and government spending. The only tool that a president has to address spending is the veto. That's it. And the government's been shut down approximately 20 times since the Budget Act of 1974. We've gone over that in great detail in the past. We're still here. People still get their checks. Military's still funded. But that's the only tool the president has. It wasn't that long ago when he was presented with an outrageous budget with the Republicans and the Democrats together. Massively increased spending, massively increased borrowing, massively increased the debt. That is a direct assault on your children and grandchildren and generations yet born. The president was persuaded to sign it by the Secretary of Defense, Mattis, because there was increased defense spending. You remember what we said here. Don't sign it. Veto it. Go ahead and shut down the government. You'll eventually get what you want. Couple of weeks of pain, but we have to do this. But the president signed it, and what we hear is he regretted it. And he should have regretted it. Because now, budget experts are estimating that we're soon going to start getting trillion-dollar annual deficits. When Barack Obama became president of the United States, the cumulative fiscal operating debt was slightly over $10 trillion. It is today over $21 trillion. And I'm not even counting unfunded liabilities, which take it to $230 trillion. So the president has tried to claw back some of the spending. McConnell has said, no, well, we're not doing that. The president now wants to use some of this leverage he has to veto whatever they come up with to get the border secured. And the Wall Street Journal has gone insane. And I'll tell you why. Because the Wall Street Journal editorial board, run by a guy by the name of Paul Gigot, has forever supported open borders. When Gigot's predecessor, Bob Bartley, was the editorial page chief, they even wrote an editorial in the 1980s trashing Ronald Reagan's amnesty, saying it didn't go far enough, urging an amendment to the Constitution that said simply this: thou shalt have open borders. 5 words. That was in their editorial. This is where the Kochs are coming from, by the way. This is where the Democrats are coming from, by the way. They want open borders. And effectively, but for the efforts of the Border Patrol, but for the efforts of ICE, effectively, we have an open border. If you're caught, you're caught. But for millions of people, you're not caught. Absolute lawlessness. So the Wall Street Journal is blasting the President of the United States on its editorial page. It's a scathing editorial. So what if the government shuts down for a day or two or a week or a month? How many times have I said, do you enjoy the weekend? Well, the government shut down over the weekend. Do you enjoy your long holidays, your federal holidays? The government shut down on the federal holidays. You like Christmas? Government's closed. You like Thanksgiving? Government's closed. Labor Day? Government's closed. Martin Luther King's birthday? Government's closed. President's Day? Government's closed. Over and over and over again. Meanwhile, essential employees are always on the job. So what's the problem? Social Security checks go out, Medicare checks go out, Medicaid checks go out, the military's funded. What's the problem? I'll be right back.